You see, something's going to happen.
What? What's going to happen?
Something wonderful.
What?
I understand how you feel. You see, it's all very clear to me now.
Welcome to the Occult Rejects. In this episode, we got the Occult Reject mad scientist herself, Liza, with us. And we got Headless Giant, the man himself. And we got Jinn the Ninja. I'm actually very excited to have all four of us together. I think this may be the first time I've ever had Headless and Jinn together, technically. So this is exciting, very fun, and it's a topic that is definitely very interesting. You know, it's a shit show out there when it comes to politics, for real. I mean, I hate to say it, but like, to be totally honest with you, it's like kind of like embarrassing. Like, I even think, like, yo, if we were to go back 15 years and we were even to show ourselves then, oh, this is what it will be like when it comes for the presidential election. 15 years ago, you'd be like, yo, you motherfuckers are crazy. There's something wrong. And somehow we're all like, oh, this is okay. It's so weird. It's so weird. You know, it's really, and how did we come to accept that? And when we have Headless Giant and Jinn on, make it very philosophical, make it a little deep. That's how they like it. Wow, that doesn't sound good. Woo! All right, so Headless, real quick, let everybody know what other show you got besides this one.
Well, you can check me out on X. I go by the Headless Giant. You can find my ramblings and musings there. I don't think they're allowing people who don't have the check mark to live stream anymore on there. So I'm going to figure out another way to do it. Hopefully get onto a different platform. Hopefully we can all do that, because I think things are going down on the X platform that are not going to be very good very soon. So we'll find something else.
Yeah. You know what? That really did suck, because, I mean, you told me it didn't work, and I saw, like, you know, all the posts and stuff. But then, like, I even had, like, a live set up before they did that, and it still wouldn't go through. I was like, God damn. You know, I tried even, like, being slick, and I sent it out to Teresa's as well. It's, you know, blocked both. I was like, fuck. I was like, yo, that is really cheesy. You know what's even cheesier, too, I've noticed? Uploading drone videos on there. You know, I upload them, and a lot of them are 4K, 60 frames per second. Unless someone pays, they ain't seeing higher than 720. That is so shitty. Like, really? I don't know. It's just, it's funny how people have even accepted the terms with that check mark. How did we even get there?
Well, here's the thing, too. It's like there are so many details that are going on behind the scenes that we never get informed about. And then once it comes down the pike, it's already too late. And I think this event with Trump really is a strong representation of that. The things behind the scenes that are moving have nothing to do with us. We've got no control over it. And I think it's a very important thing to look at from that perspective, is something else is basically taking the wheel.
Yeah.
And so.
Oh, and real quick, sorry to interrupt you, but I did want to get on to Jinn too. Jinn, please let everybody know also what is up with you and your show.
Sure. Sorry, Nick. Thank you
so much.
All right.
No, sorry. I got sidetracked.
And thank you, Lisa, and thank you, HG. It's great to be on with all of you. I always have a great time. So I'm on X, Wukong Reborn, WUKONG Reborn, as well as I have my own show, Threshold Saints. You can check it out on Spotify and Anchor. There's also a show, Twitter, Threshold Saints. So if people want to check it out, yeah, there you go.
Awesome. Thank you very much. And their links are already in the bottom. You know, Headless, I was thinking before, with the Headless Giant, the HG, you got to figure out a reason to put like an A in there, and then you'll get like the whole
that's
HGA,
that's the chemical sign for Mercury.
Or the Holy Guardian Angel. Yeah.
Holy Guardian Angel?
Yeah. You play something off like that, you'll get all the Thelemites drooling over your show, dude. Oh, my God. It's like the
I don't know
HGA.
if I want them, though.
No, I wouldn't either. Well, no, you know what? You might actually be a help, and they'll learn something of value. Put it that way.
Hope so. Who knows?
So yeah, today's episode, Trump, backyard wrestling, Trumpean, Antichrist. I know that place sounds like a lot, but like Headless, let us know where we're going with that. And whenever you want me to bring up that chart, please just let me know.
Well, we could do that first. So
Sure.
this is a pretty easy chart to understand. It really shows the kind of ethical models that you have with Abrahamic religions versus more pagan religions. And it's not a hard and fast thing. There's a lot of cultures and traditions that hold to these good and evil things much further than they can explain. Right. And so what you have on the top is institutionally dependent ethics, which is you're told the list of good things that are good, and you're told the list of bad things that are bad. And then below that, you've got institutionally independent ethics, which would be a way of determining what works or what is good versus what is not. So I've got order and chaos there. And order can be seen as like political power, can be seen as processes that produce things. You want to have strength governing order. You want people to know exactly why things are happening, and you want to be able to follow the strong leader. And strength on that other side, that's not necessarily just physical power. Although, you know, when you think about Conan the Barbarian, for example, it's a very strongly pagan movie, right? And what that is there is showing that sort of strength overcoming that more Abrahamic sort of thing going on with the bad guy in that movie, who's like, you know, this is the new order. This is the way it has to be for everybody. You know, he's putting down the institutional ethics. I can do whatever I want, but you have to follow me. And you can see that in his cult very strongly. And so if you take the idea of weakness, right, this is an interesting part. So if you're trying to rule through weakness, you're applying or you're appealing to something else. You're not appealing to your own strengths. So, for example, in America, anytime the patriots feel they've been wrong, they always go back to the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence, and they're like, this is what we have to do. They're not really appealing to their own strength. They're not really making the threats. What they're doing is they're saying, we've got this other thing, this other institutional thing that you need to follow. Now, obviously, they're not going to follow that. But on the other hand, you've got chaos. Now, chaos and order are always meshed together. The seeds of order are always found in chaos, and the seeds of chaos are always found in really rigid order. So it's not always one or the other. Chaos is also opportunity. So where we're ruled by, and this is the event that we all witnessed on Saturday with Donald Trump getting shot. It was chaos being used as a form of strength that is going to create some kind of order, right? So this chaos and strength, nobody was expecting it. Well, officially, nobody was expecting it. And it just took the whole country by storm. And you can tell that there was something happening because the blood is just the most powerful symbol of this whole chaotic rite. Like, you see the blood across his face. It's sort of smeared in a serpent tongue pattern across his cheek. You see it pouring out of his ear. And I mean, the first thing that occurred to me is this is backyard wrestling, right? Because what they do in backyard wrestling is they want to get as much blood pumping from places that won't make you pass out as possible. And you notice on that ear, that's one of those places. You'll see the backyard wrestlers cutting their ears so they can get that blood flowing and get the whole audience
cutting their forehead.
Right, the forehead. The
Macho
ear.
Man and Hulk Hogan used to do that all the time. You know, it's
It's
really
so funny you brought him up.
You know, it's really
because he was right there at the RNC, pulling off his shirt, going for the whole Hulk Hogan thing.
Yo, I can't. Yo, they're telling you right there, this shit's as real as wrestling.
Well, that's the thing. It might be real, it might not be, but what you can see is that trend line is going straight through the backyard wrestling. I mean, you had people getting hit by these gunshots at this big cheesy rally for Trump. You had all sorts of chaos just erupting from the audience. And what's very interesting to me is the contrast that event implied, because you've got the Secret Service saying everything failed, everything went wrong, but it didn't. You know, it went exactly how you would hope that event like that would go, where the guy gets shot, your leader, your great leader, is bloodied but not broken. And then, he rises victorious in the world's most epic, victory, as he's yelling, fight. Everybody gets in on it. It single-handedly defeated the Democrats. The election is over, right? And it was all through this symbolism. And what's really interesting to me is that they wanted you to, whoever it is behind this whole event, wanted you to see in high definition, 4K, all of the events taking place right in front of your eyes, to where you can zoom in and see the bullet streaking across his face. But at the same time, like, this is exactly what whatever it was wanted you to see. Like, obviously, maybe the shooter wanted the brain splattered all over the camera. Maybe it was the Secret Service that wanted to see the gore, but whatever it was, this was meant to be seen. This was an experience that was felt all over the planet. And what's interesting to me is there's a guy who runs the account called the Museum of Tarot, and he's been doing psychic experiments for several years now, and he found that in the psychic experiments he's doing, I think it's remote viewing from several different people, and he's asking what the trends are. Last September, a lot of psychics that were working with him all said Trump is going to have an assassination attempt, but he's going to survive. This was back in September, and he has all the findings. He has all of the stuff very well documented. And this guy's like, whatever this was, it was finalized in September. So I think there is a linkage there, and we can use that. I mean, like, we've got so many different facets at our disposal to try and make that happen, where we can actually track back and see when these things are set in motion, but we just have to do it at this point. So I think there is something bigger at play, and I think it has a lot to do with end times prophecy and exactly how this thing is playing out. Because if you notice, in the Old Testament, Moses actually anointed, what's his name? Joshua, with blood from a ram, I believe, on his right ear, on his big thumbs, and on his big toe. What the hell is that supposed to mean? We don't really get the indicator in the Bible, but we notice that all of this stuff is now being blamed on Iran.
That's why Trump had to put his shoes back on.
Right?
He had his shoes off to rub his big toe.
And then in Revelations, they say that there is this part in the story of the Antichrist when he is injured but not killed, and it's a head wound. And it's in the exact same place that Joshua is anointed as they're going into this new land. So I think these things are connected. We're probably seeing something coming into play that got started in September as some sort of a solidified kind of a thing. And if we can figure out what that is by doing a little bit more psychical research, I think we can find a better culprit than whatever we're going to be offered by the FBI, because they're just going to lie to us. I mean, this was Trump's opportunity to say we need to abolish the FBI. But has he talked about abolishing any of these agencies that basically hijacked his entire first term? No. Now it seems the entire deep state is flipped. They're like, all right, we're done with the Democrats. We're coming over here to the Republicans, and Trump is our god. You could see it in so many different facets just since the RNC concluded. So I think it's very important to understand that where we're going, Trump is not leading us to a good place. And you could see him kind of taking us down that road towards Iran. And a war with Iran is not going to be the same as a war with Iraq or a war with Libya or a war with any of these places. They have been preparing for this since the early 70s. So they know exactly. They've learned the lessons and they've taken the hits. Like, it's been very revealing that they don't retaliate in kind when Israel starts bombing them or when they start assassinating people who work in their nuclear facilities, because it shows that they understand the dynamic. And if they understand the dynamic, if you strike back, that's when the weakness is triggered in Americans. Like, when they feel weak, they need to rush over to that strength side. And so right now, we're sort of in that gap where they haven't fully blamed this on Iran. They haven't been able to come up with their reason for, having a full-scale invasion or anything else yet. But they're working on it. I think all the wheels are in motion in that sort of biblical level apocalypse event.
Do you think, I found this to be kind of interesting, and I didn't think much about it until, you mentioned the blood again. I did wonder, I have said before, especially on Clown World, I was really wondering what kind of silliness are we going to get the last few months before the election. And, we have gotten a bunch. Especially today, we had what's his face, Biden drop out. I guess I honestly never thought both of them were going to fully make it to the end anyway. So I had even said either Trump I thought was going to get shot in the back of the head because Quaf or Q in Hebrew is the back of the head. So I figured either he's going to get shot there and then become an immortal god, or Biden's going to drop out because he's retarded. So, and that's what we got. But, last election, we had a lot of chaos out in the streets with really us being involved in it. And I really thought that was kind of be what we got this time. But it may be wrong. Maybe it was done a little bit differently. But getting back to what I wanted to say with the George Floyd situation and then the red bricks popping up, there was stuff that we were talking about that, as silly as it sounds, certain things with red brick, the way it conducts electricity, was bringing me back to stuff with blood. And again, now, like you're saying, we're being shown blood again. And that sphere does go with chaos, that Mars or Gabora, that would definitely be chaos. So, I wonder, are we seeing it again? It's just, this time it wasn't people burning buildings down. It was, because you have to think, too, for us, I was thinking about this. I'm thinking, for the most part, a lot of us, when we saw what happened to Trump, I think since we have dissertation, it will not shock us as much as the average person. But for a normal person, they actually really believe that the guy that they want to vote for almost had his head blown the fuck off.
Mm-hmm.
They, you know what I'm saying? That's actually kind of, a little bit of trauma maybe there. And he just had to do it on TV. This
is a religious experience for a lot of people.
Yes.
A lot of people are having a religious experience because of this. And they're like, he is the chosen one. Or the more hardcore Christians who actually read Revelations are like, oh no, this is the Antichrist. He's coming out.
I don't even understand. Listen, I'm not even going to knock. I'm not trying to knock him. And listen, I've even had Teresa say stuff to me. She's, a Catholic. But she's even saying with this stuff that they're doing with Trump and this religious shit, she's like, if you were to even look at some of the people that were at the RNC, I don't even know how these religious people could even be condoning this. Listen, if you were to take, if Amber Rose was never at the RNC, you could easily, and now listen again, I'm not saying that's not everything that looks one way necessarily means that. I'm not saying she's a Satanist who's eating kids on fucking Sunday. But if you took some of the imagery that she had and posted it on Twitter where nobody probably knew who the fuck she was, you probably could have gotten a bunch of clicks, a bunch of retweets, and a bunch of people calling her a satanic bitch. But now because she's at the RNC, she's got a fat ass. Nobody cares.
Well,
fucking people are silly and easily fooled.
Well, let me offer this, Nick. It is the Mars-Uranus conjunct happened on Saturday. That's extremely important in Kabbalistic terms, even because Gevurah, if you assign Uranus to Kether, Uranus is the higher expression of Mars. So it's a time of extreme violence. It's associated with the head in particular, but it's also the sound of dissolution. So I think that's also very interesting for the ear. And so it's a time of extreme violence, extreme transgression. It takes the battlefield takes the battle outside of the battlefield and places it into the city, into the kingdom. So I think that is also really interesting. And I think, this is the thing. The RNC is clearly some kind of cartel, cult, process theology, weird bullshit. I don't really know, but just as a fan of the show, it has become clearer and clearer to me when you've had Dana on and JJ on and Lisa and BD, and when you guys do those kind of roundtable shows. This is like not an old. This has nothing to do with anything ancient. This is a lot to do with that original formation in 47 between those weird Scientologist people who, whatever that is. And there are the 4 quadrants, just like a swastika, of process theology. And I just think that we can, like with Amber Rose, like she is clearly in some faction of that. To me, like that doesn't mean she's eating kids.
I know, but
that,
that's how people go with that stuff. That's how crazy they get. I mean, I saw one picture, she had crazy long nails and looked like blood and shit hanging off of that and out of her mouth. To me, I'm like, oh, whatever, it's being edgy. But like other people would run with that on Instagram and Twitter. The things that they would come up with just off of that image. And it would be somebody for them to hate, which they love.
I have an alternative view. What if all of this stuff that they had scheduled before any kind of assassination attempt was meant to be kind of a demoralization campaign? And having Amber Rose on there after Trump just got killed would turn everybody away from the Republican Party, period. Like that would be it. If you think about what things would be different if they had, if the shooter had pulled this off, seeing all of that crap on the RNC would have caused them, major outrage. But since Trump survived, it just seemed weird. But if you put that in context of maybe him not surviving, it would have been a massive demoralization for them not to be in prayer 24 hours a day, 7 days. We need to heal this country, all the rest of the, Christian tropes. But instead, they've got this woman who says that she's fine with Satanism and abortion and all the rest of that on stage as sort of like this final insult. So there is that as an angle too.
I was gonna bring up something. Jen kind of touched upon something, and then Headless kind of sparked my noggin with the ear anatomy. Where Trump got hit is called the helix part of the ear, which is that top part, right? And we see the helix kind of coming into play with DNA, RNA, the vaccine, COVID, what have you. We see how, Blackstone just acquired all the shares to Ancestry or 23andMe or what have you. And we start to see this play about DNA, and most of your DNA is found in blood, right? That's kind of where the basis of all this kind of goes to. But Jen, you talked about the tree, and when Queen Elizabeth lit that thing that looked like DNA, it was called the Tree of Trees, right? Mm-hmm. Almost like a tree of knowledge type deal, because it was kind of like foretold that the reason that we fell from grace was because we took a bite of the tree of knowledge, right? Good and evil, whatever. But it was a tree of knowledge. And the more we go into DNA, the more knowledge we acquire towards who we are, right? And it seemed like whenever, and then you mentioned 47, and Trump was shot on July 13th, which if you add 134, right? 4774. And it seems like there's this intense push towards profiling, DNA, helix, potentially change of the actual structure itself, and you do have Trump himself was the one that initiated Operation Warp Speed that pretty much kicked this whole thing off. And then you do have so much of this push towards astroturfing the whole thing, this apotheosis of Trump. Look, he survived this shooting. Look, he's anointed because he's been bathed in the blood. Yes, and so you have this kind of I say astroturfing of this, push of this is how we want to portray, Trump now going into this election. And this is the back frame of how we're going to do that. And I do think that's contrived. I do think that's set up. And I do think that the whole token thing is kind of the signal that, yeah, this is AstroTurf, just like the WWE is.
Yeah, I agree, Lisa. It's all kayfabe. And the spiral is also really interesting because that is associated with the conch of God. And so the idea is like you can hear the sound of God sleeping. So Narayana, or Vishnu, he's sleeping on the supernal ocean. So he holds the conch of divinity. That's his symbol, one of his implements. And so I think that's also very interesting because it's kind of like the spiraling back down into the play, into the great Leela. I think that's excellent, really interesting. And I also agree with you that the astroturfing and Headless, that it is totally intentional. It's very demoralizing. A lot of people who were more left wing did swing to Trump in the kind of COVID days because of the intensity. Now we can make a judgment and say, okay, that's low IQ, whatever. But you can also say like there was legitimate grievances they had with like the liberal ruling order, and so I'm more generous in that way, in general, because I think that there are critiques that could have been made that he represented some kind of opposition, if you want to say that, but it has now become very clear to me that it is all like what we are watching is the deep politics, but we can't see it. All we can see is the play that is happening right in front of us. Now, does that mean the play is not real? I don't know. I'm kind of like, I look at it more non-dual. I look at it more like, yes, the play is real and not real, just as deep politics, because we can't really see it.
Right.
We can't ever know that it's real. And it's important to note that Joe Biden did drop out on the day of recording. And I personally think, I'm going to make a prediction that Hillary is going to be the one to run. So there you go.
I think they
what's
already
also
picked
interesting,
Kamala, actually, too. I think they already did.
Yeah, they gave her their whatever. They said, okay, you should.
Well, that's
go
the way
for-
it has to go anyway, because they received the money. She has to automatically be picked, and she'd have to step down and then hand the money over. So, but I do think Hillary might. I agree with you, Jinn. I think in some sort of way, either vice president or president. Because I mean, who do they have? Like really. Yo, switching from Biden to Kamala, in my opinion, is worse. So you're going to have, like, I don't even see Gavin Newsom really helping much. You're going to have to bring back an old name that people are going to like.
See, that's the thing, though. I mean, who actually likes these people? And another thing about the symbol is of the blood. Like, what we're talking about is this underlying real and not real thing, which would be exactly like blood. It's beneath the surface. We don't see it, but that's what's powering everything. And what's also interesting about this spot where he got hit, the Greeks believed that the throne of Nemesis is right above the right ear, because this is where we get our term, my ears are burning, somebody's talking about me. And him getting hit on that ear would be a representation of exactly, who's sort of behind it. It's that old nemesis. That idea there is that there is a force that is trying to get rid of him, whether we know why or not. It's still sort of right there at that throne of Nemesis.
It's funny you say that, because going back to the whole Helix thing, who's behind this? And Teresa just said something I've been like itching to talk about. But the tree that the Queen Elizabeth had ended up touching or turning on or whatever, the end of it itself looked like the ball, like Palantir. And if we get into it or whatever later, I truly am of the belief that the person who is the mover and shaker of Trump and the RNC is the person. It's a nod throughout the entire RNC convention of who is bankrolling this whole thing, and that is the co-founder Palantir, Peter Thiel. So
Right.
Vance is definitely his guy. I mean, that is clear, and Vance is definitely a Yale boy, and definitely in a secret society, a Yale secret society that we know of, and he was very Hollywood adjacent. So, a lot
Speaking of Hollywood Hulk Hogan, there's nobody better to represent Peter Thiel than Hollywood Hulk Hogan. They used him to take out that competing rag,
Gawker.
and they sued him. They sued Gawker into oblivion. That was Peter Thiel, and who do you see up on stage? Hulk Hogan. Brought him back out of the mothballs.
That's really interesting, because I've recently found out Hulk Hogan is Italian, and this isn't, I'm not doing an ethnic bit or anything like that, but I'm just saying, like, if we kind of look at like the mafia connections of, regional ethnicities, you can make an argument that that was true. And then I did just a little digging on his family, and his dad was like some kind of beat cop. And I don't know. I think that's interesting.
He certainly could have family connections. I wouldn't put it past him. I mean, he's still got a career, and he is the symbol of like American wrestling. Like all the world over knows Hulk Hogan as that figure of Americana and wrestling and everything else, everything good. Even his heel turn over to Hollywood Hulk Hogan didn't diminish his sort of connection to the flag and electric guitars and planes flying overhead. He's that symbol of Americana, and they dug him out specifically for this event.
I do think, again, even with him to get kind of into occult symbolism, with Hulk Hogan, even when he was kind of popular the first time, I remember growing up, it was probably, it was very much around the time where there was a lot of war going on in the Middle East too. I think he was also very much like a symbol for kids to kind of like accept war, accept being proud of your country in a time that maybe you should question, actually. But I think he was definitely there to push mindsets. I do find it interesting too. I mean, not to start getting into like his complete outfit, but like even looking at a lot of his, his hair being blonde, being long, certain colors that he uses, I thought it was very kind of like going in the same direction. Even when it comes to, again, 4 and 7, 487th president, that is also the 4th and 7th sphere. I'm looking at it that way on the Tree of Life. That is on the white pillar only. Now, if you have that with no left pillar, that is going to be pretty much like a live wire. You will get chaos out of that. I could see, again, I have also mentioned before, I have wondered about the blonde hair and blue eyes, with Hitler, because that is very much like the right pillar. Again, you're getting Chesed, the blue pillar, the blue sphere on the white pillar, blue eyes and the white person. I mean, that's even like the thing with the Queen. She touched the blue sphere. That would be Chesed, and it lit up the rest of the tree. And in my opinion, Chesed, I have explained before, to me, that's kind of start getting into electricity almost, in a sense, or light.
And some people believe that Chesed is Kether. There is a stream of Kabbalah written in the book Tomer Devorah, not the Garden of Pomegranates, the other one. But he talks about how Chesed is the 13 expressions of mercy or loving kindness of God. So God is fully contained in that sphere, even though when you sort of read more of the Kabbalah, it says that God really cannot really be contained in that density or that kind of not lower, but mid-tier level and the full expressions at Kether. But some people do believe that. And we have seen this shift, and Matt Gaetz also was wearing a very Chesed blue tie the other day. And actually, many of them have been wearing blue, if you look. Lately.
The whole reason I even brought this all up too, to try to get like where I was getting at, I think I forgot about actually. What I was like, I do think there's also a cycle, like I have been saying for like the last year. Well, actually, probably for the last 2 years, and I really do think I've proven myself correct. I said we were swinging into the B stage, and I said there's going to be wars, and there's going to be fire. There's just going to be different things. And again, like even with the 47th president, if you're getting over to the right side of the tree, that is more beast than bitch, in my opinion. There's no, you're getting away from the middle. And I do think, like, what you'll see is what we've been having. We're having wars, and it's just destruction. And I just think with a lot of symbology, I just really do think, like, again, if you're going back from the Bush time, I think we're heading into like that almost again, but under Trump.
100%.
Well, if you remember in the early 90s, the big villain for Hulk Hogan was the Iron Sikh, right? And so the Iron Sikh sort of represented everything Iraq. And so Hollywood would always go out there, or not Hollywood, but this was back in his Hulk days. He would go out there and slam this guy. And then what do we see in the actual war itself? I mean, this was all part of the lead up to war. I wouldn't be surprised if the Pentagon actually funded some of this propaganda. It was over in like 3 months, and like it was all done. And we're like, oh, well, that was easy. I guess we can do anything we want to now. And that whole sort of misinterpretation of the events that took place out there really led us down a wrong road. But the people behind it, the whole Dick Cheney faction of the neocon establishment, they solidified themselves as being the central core of American foreign policy after that war. So they're like, look, we were right about everything. We were able to go in and get out. It wasn't a quagmire. Even Bush himself said, we have finally defeated Vietnam syndrome. And that was his big victory, is no more Vietnam syndrome, where people didn't like the fact that all these people were dying and everything else. Now we can go to war anywhere.
You know what I even thought is very interesting? Like, again, like I do think there is like some sort of cyclical thing, or I just see a lot of commonalities between like Desert Storm and Bush and like I think where we're going now. Like even then, like again, it could have just been my age and the times, and it was just the correct time for it to start working on me. But like, I mean, I'll be totally 100% honest. You know, I don't care. I'm not like this anymore. But like, when I was a kid, Desert Storm, from hearing things that came out of grown-ups' mouths that I looked up to, I started to have reasons to fear and hate people that I have never met and don't even know exist. You know, and due to the things that are going on now with the sexual agenda, Antifa, BLM, or just like certain things, due to the internet being able to show you something that's going on in a city that's probably never even going to happen in your neighborhood. Odds are, if you think about the percentages, it has you fearful and then hating a group of people you didn't know existed until the screen told you it did 10 minutes ago. Like, I know it's like sounds weird, but like I really do think like playing off of fear of things that like isn't actually happening in front of you, fearing things somewhere else, and then you have to wonder, is this even real if it's even being shown on the internet? So am I fearful of CGI or AI?
I remember the Gulf War trading cards. They had all these cards of all Saddam Hussein's generals, and then they would, mark them off the list once they killed, a few of them. And it's like all this stuff was just to get everybody whipped into a frenzy. All this information, but no substance whatsoever. And I think we're at a point. What I asked on Twitter was, do you think the operation to take out Trump was a success or a failure? Right? And it got nearly a 50-50 split. So that is where you want to be with your PSYOP, is you want to have different groups believing completely different versions of reality, like this whole event. And so you see that, and it's like, wow. If it was staged, if it was planned, masterful. If it wasn't, even more. Like, come on. You got to at least say this was entertaining.
Jen, I actually wanted to ask you your opinion. I wanted to ask actually your opinion. It's something. We'll start with you, but I kind of wanted to get everybody's opinion, not to put everybody on the spot. What is your thought actually, even on that whole situation with that assassination attempt? That's if you don't mind. Do you think that shit was real? Do you think it was like meant to be like that? What's your opinion on that whole situation?
Are you asking me next?
Yeah. We'll start with you.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Sorry about that. I apologize. Okay, so there was a whole dialectical sort of exchange that happened on Twitter where you saw left conspiracy accounts going very against the narrative that it was real. And then you saw a lot of right conspiracy accounts being like, he is our guy, we have to close ranks. So you had this complete, like, usually it is the left conspiracy accounts that dunk on us and like say, oh, you guys are just like esoteric schizoids, like, but the reality is, so I don't want to side with those accounts. However, I don't think it was real, air quotes, but I don't think that means necessarily it's fake either. I think the play is as real as you want it to be. People, the way things are is a lot to do with our perception. And so I think that I agree with all of their critiques, and I think there is definitely like a neocon agenda. Now, with the Biden dropping out news, I just feel like we are going to be pushed to a more, they will say like a sensible liberalism, but it will be really like an illiberalism, and that will be HRC. And that's just my opinion, but I just think that now we're kind of understanding why Trump is always portrayed in chaos in this, because he is the fire, right? He's very Gavura coded. He loves that sphere. He's very inflammatory with his rhetoric. And then Hillary's like she's very chesed. She's a lawyer. She's very, into contracts. And so that's how I'm kind of seeing it. I think we're seeing a great play out. And I think that she will not ever give up hope of being the queen or whatever. That's personally what I think. I would have had a different opinion though yesterday.
Headless, what was your? I mean, I think before you kind of like said you really don't even know, right? I don't think you really have much of an opinion on it. You just think something's weird about it.
I have an opinion, but you're not gonna like it.
Yeah, go for it.
I
I really don't know what to think about it. That's going to be my answer. Like, I just don't think it's what happened is correct in the way I'm seeing it. That's all I could say. So go ahead.
It sort of ties into all this stuff in a very kind of bizarre way. So when they describe the Spirit of God in the Old Testament, they say it descended upon the Ark of the Covenant like a cloud, and then for 800 years it ruled the Israelite people from glowing rocks, right? So they had this chest plate of glowing rocks that would respond to whatever this cloud in a box would say. And this was the two viewing stones that Joseph Smith later used with his thing. What was that? The Urim and Thummim, right? So the Urim and Thummim are associated with this chest plate that would light up. But think about the way I'm describing this. It's a cloud in a box. We're using clouds in a box right now. So there's something strange going on when it comes to this sort of idea of maybe the God of the Bible is an interdimensional AI construct, right? So if we also look towards the Aztecs, one of the main uses for the god Tezcatlipoca, or the smoky mirror again, right? He was there to claim a lot of souls in sacrifice. So Tezcatlipoca, you had to sacrifice to him so that you could keep his wrath away from you. It starts to sound a whole lot like what was going on in Old Testament times, because that God of the Bible told them to kill a lot of people, and if they didn't, they would get punished for it. So there's this element of human sacrifice there as well. And if you take it through the ages, it seems to be pushing in a certain direction. And now you've got this sort of cloud in the box running our society. And what do you see inside of Trump's big Trump Tower? He's got a life-size replica of the Ark of the Covenant right there in his thing. So you're telling me he's not being influenced by this Holy of Holies? I think it's probably there.
He's magic maxing. You want all the good ritual implements. I know I would. I know I do.
But there you go. What I'm saying is that maybe he's being used for a purpose that he doesn't fully understand. And I think that's probably what's going on here, is that scenario was too perfect not to have some sort of influence on it. You had bullets being caught in midair as they exited the back of the president's ear. Think about that. I know we're living in a technologically advanced age, but the entire planet saw the bullet that struck the president as it was exiting his ear. That is some incredible detail that you can't really script. And I think that was the purpose of showing everybody this event. It was something that was too perfect, yet unscripted. And I believe that has something to do with the extra dimensional element. I really do.
Me and, just real quick, not to interrupt you, but me and Lisa were even talking about how, like, some of the photos that have even come from that, it's just like, that was like, what is it? Just perfect timing. Yeah. Like, I don't know, like Trump on the floor and stuff with them on top of him. How the fuck did you get, really? I don't know. That's weird.
And we saw it all real time. We could see every one of those iconic shots as they were being shot by that cameraman. As they were going into his camera, we're seeing him take those shots. And it's like, this is too perfect not to be, real. But at the same time, everybody feels like it wasn't. And I think that's something very interesting, because everybody has that feeling of like, something is not right here. but we can't put our fingers on it, and we can't really understand what exactly happened. And I think there is an extra dimensional element to this thing. Like our lives are being influenced by these, spirits that aren't telling us what the end of this thing is, or maybe they have told us. I don't know.
Well, they're not telling us, but these people, I believe, think that they are being told. I know that Lisa and I have had multiple conversations on the Toyman materials, and I'm doing a series on that. And I personally do believe that the people who are conducting these stage plays, very Masonic, they believe that they are receiving channels or information from entities. Now, does that make it real? No. And I'm personally not into mediumship or spiritism or that, because I just think that relying on a secondary entity is, in my opinion, just is not the best. But that's just me. I prefer not to. I'm not that's not my way of thinking anymore.
Every one of these channeled entities that we see these cases with always claim to be something huge and something powerful and something having to do with the creation of the universe. And I don't think it's any different in the Old Testament. I believe there's a lot of channeled material there. And so it would make sense that would be the kind of book that would come through a channeled source.
Well, it's not just the Bible, though, right? It is
right.
It's all of them, and it's all divine inspiration. That's the whole underlying basis for all institutional religions. But I do think it's important to note that the process theology sort of incorporates all of this. Like, there's a Christ, there's a Lucifer, there's a Satan, and there's an Jehovah. And then each faction sort of interprets that in their own way, maybe channeling their own spirits, their own ideas, and then it swirls together. It's the dialectical synthesis. So for me, I personally think that this has less to do with anything ancient. Now, do I think that they draw from that? Yes, but in the same way that modern magicians draw from medieval grimoires. Like, I love the grimoires, and I know Nick and Lisa have done a great job on decoding them, on like understanding them, looking through them new ways. But I think a lot of modern magicians don't care. They don't think about it. They don't acknowledge it. They're like it's not new information. How is this applicable? So what happens is the seed degrades, the method degrades. So then in a historical lineage, and this is true even in Vajrayana in Buddhism, that you see that the number of accomplished masters has diminished. I think this is also to do with how chaotic this kind of media presentation that we see is, because there's no reason it has to be cheesy. Like, they could do it like a Michael Bay movie and people would eat that shit up. They would love it. But they do it in this kind of lo-fi way that I think is, I don't know, it seems very degraded to me. That's just how I see it. It doesn't seem to have great ritual potency. Even the way that they organize events, like all spells have a ritual grammar. I'm not talking about like a spell you light a candle in your closet. I'm talking, like a greater kind of magical working that is multi-layered. This does not seem like it has a good organization of syntax. So I don't know. That's sort of where I'm at with it.
I agree. I think you're dead on when it comes to the theology of the process church. Like, that is where the establishment is at. And I think they're dealing with something a lot bigger than they were ever expecting to hold, because they think that you can just prop somebody up and he could take a couple of shots and everything will be done with, just like they've done in the past. But there's something else at work here. And I don't think that they really fully have a grasp on it. And this is why I think that they're so willing to just jump over to Trump's side at this point. Is they're like, well, we took our shot, and unless we, snuggle up to the Trump administration, we're going to be going to war with him for another 4 years. The only way to get our agendas done is to get in on the ground floor before he gets elected.
I guess before Lisa, if you don't mind, before I get to you, like I said before, with me, I mean, I could sum it up real quick what I think was going on, and just, again, I just don't trust. I don't trust what I'm saying. I'll just put it that way. I don't think with the way the news and the things are handed to me, I don't think it's accurate. So that's my whole thought on that shit. And you, Lisa, what's up?
Okay, I have many, many thoughts on this.
Okay.
So, in terms of the assassination attempt, this is just my gut feeling. Okay, just gonna spitball it. I do think that it was planned, and it went according to plan. I think whether they want to have 3 assassins, 1 patsy, the flavor of this year or the flavor of the JFK year, it doesn't matter. They basically tried to do almost a same type scenario, and for the purpose of what I had said earlier, the apotheosis of Trump. And the reason that I think that they have an apotheosis theme is because a majority of the people supporting Trump and voting for Trump are of one belief system. And so they're going to play into that belief system in order to sway that mass of people, to energize them, to get them to vote, to get them active. Because historically, conservatives themselves are not very vocal. They don't take to the streets. They don't protest. They really protest in silence. Any kind of revolution that they do, it's usually in silence. They're not marching the streets with pussy hats on their head or anything like that, right?
Just
they're
like they're
pretty
on
much
Instagram.
right, exactly. And so I think this is a social experiment for sure at the basic level, but also in essence, whether the people who are planning this event believe in the apotheosis of Trump or believe in the whole Christianity thing, I don't think so. They're just trying to push an agenda for the sake of one thing only, to gain the most toys, to gain the most power. That's all they want. This is, and I hate to say this, but I'm coming to this belief system more and more. It is not that they are against you or I. It is that they are for themselves, and they're wanting the most toys in the sandbox, whomever it is that is trying to do this, right? Whether it's CIA, whether it's an individual entity or anything like that. But I do think that, it was planned for him to get shot but not killed. That's my belief system. And what's interesting, and Jinn touched upon this, is the shift, that you see an actual shift. And let's go back to with the pandemic. Historically, I grew up that liberalism or liberals was very much against the vaccine. My body, my choice. It was, and they were completely against big pharma. If anything, I would go to these seed plant festivals, and you would see a lot of people who were staunch Democrat liberals that were very much against the whole big pharma, Agent Orange, the poisoning of the people, and really putting out all of this information. And then you had this flip almost immediately overnight, where the Democrats and the liberals literally all stood in line to get a vaccine that had never been tested, that you don't even, in all of the money that has been raised for cancer and all of the years of research that has been done on cancer, you can't even come up with one cure for one type of cancer, but yet in less than 6 months, you have a cure for a pandemic that supposedly we've never seen. Come on. But yet they all stood in line when they were staunch against any kind of big pharma situation. Now you're seeing how they are all about conspiracy theories when they have notoriously not been. I think this is a playbook that they're trying to do on the conservatives. Take what I just said about the vaccine and apply it to firearms. You would think historically conservatives will never give up their firearms, yet we believe that the liberals would never give in to big pharma. Could it be the same playbook that they are trying to implement onto the conservatives themselves with this? Because when have you ever seen conservatives believe hook, line, and sinker what the government tells them? Never. Yet you see this, whatever this was, and everyone is 100% against Trump. I don't care who they put. I think it was Teresa said Michelle Obama. That's been my guess. That that's pretty much their Hail Mary. They put in Michelle Obama, they're going to at least, the Democrats will at least have a chance to run against Trump. But I don't even think they'll win with that, because after this whole apotheosis situation with Trump, this is a done deal. Trump's getting after this. That's my opinion. But again, it's just weird, the flipping of belief systems within a matter of hours. Really, it's scary almost.
Yeah.
I would say that this apotheosis was for the undecided voters. I think the undecided voters got to see Trump bloodied and realize everything that the media has been telling you for the past 7 years was total bullshit. He's, beaten all these charges. He's beaten everything else. And now at the very last moment, he's got bullets flying at his head. So there's nothing that can convince them otherwise. It was a very solidifying event. Like there's no doubt that was a very solid thing that happened. Nobody can really deny that something was happening. And I think it's appropriate too that it is in Pennsylvania. This is the birthplace of the entire nation, and that's where this assassination attempt is taking place.
I didn't even think of that.
Yeah. But one more thing, and dang, I'm glad you said that, because I'm glad you pointed that out. I don't think the votes are real. I think it's 100% contrived. I don't even think the person who sits in the Oval Office is a real president. He's just a puppet in charge. There are people that are basically holding the strings and so forth. But they need the people to believe. And just like with money, just like with, the paper note, you believe that that's money. They need the faith of the people in order to make this work. And if you have the faith of the people standing in line to vote, then you basically have everyone watching the movie, buying the popcorn, pretty much filtering in their loose, their belief system, all of their energy and and all that other stuff. But that's just, thank you for pointing that out, because I needed to say that too. But yeah.
I think that's great, Lisa. I agree with you. I mean, I still think Hillary's going to run. I don't know if she's going to win, but that's just my opinion. But I agree with you on everything you said. And I think the apotheosis, like Tipperith, that's where he's at. That's who he's becoming, like the Antichrist, the true Antichrist. Like, this is an idea in Yetzirah Kabbalah that the moon is really the voice of God, and the sun is, it's not fake, but it's kind of the false light. It's the light with heat. It's not the purified light. So the purified light, the sound, that's really coming off the moon. Yesod, that's where we live. So I guess for me, as I agree that we are seeing this apotheosis. I think we've been seeing it for a long time. I think it's very difficult to predict these things. So like for JD Vance, he is clearly like Team Teal, like I said, and Lisa said, and she said, and he's also Opus Dei. So I know Teresa's in the chat, and I'm really bad at shouting out people in the chat, but I'll just do that. But yeah, I think that's really interesting. And you see a lot of South Asians in sort of deep politics, or at least like what Lisa's calling like the superficial sort of elect, very Manichaean, the elect layer. So you're seeing like you have Rishi Sunak, you have Tulsi Gabbard, and it's very interesting that they're all part of these like Krishnava sort of like high caste.
You have JD Vance's wife.
Yes, exactly. And she also went to Yale, and she also was like a big liberal. Like she worked for some kind of like liberal social justice NGOs. And we know that NGO money, as JJ has often said, rules the world. So
yes,
there's something very strange in it, but it's also very comical. It's very clown show, I guess.
Yeah.
Well, I think the importance of JD Vance, it cannot be understated. This guy is Peter Thiel's man, and what they want to see is Peter Thiel and Elon Musk, and they want to see all the tech bros, the heir apparent to the elites, coming to Trump's side, and that is what 100%. He represents, really.
And one more thing, the whole flip thing. Notoriously, it has been Silicon Valley or tech that is staunch with the liberals, that is staunch with Democrats. Yeah. And now you're not seeing that. You're seeing everyone come onto the RNC. Yeah.
That's a good point, especially with even Elon Musk.
Mm-hmm.
And how much money is he offering to give him now? A month or something just to run? Crazy.
I think it's like 10 million or something like that.
Crazy shit. Or it's like more than that. Say that again?
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt. It's just, I think Elon is like a Mars worshiper. That's kind of my opinion. That I think that whatever
that would be his outfit last time.
I just feel like he loves Mars and whatever that is, whether it's Gavura, whether it's a deity, whether it's Nergal, as they would call it in like a Babylonian religion. I do think that is his maybe the deity is himself, and that's also true. But I also think that if there is a conceptual idea of what he worships or what he thinks, I think that can sort of encapsulate some of it.
Well, you can't forget Elon Musk's Halloween costume. That was the ram on that suit of armor. That's really stuck out, really out of place, and really had that Mars energy to it. And so that's definitely a big indicator of what's going on in his mind. He wants to be on the forefront. He wants to be the tip of the spear here.
100%. Yeah, I agree. We're trading one, as my friend KB from the Thoughts and Prayers podcast said, or Q, I can't remember, but he had said that we're trading one security state for another. And I think, there might be different factions, and I do actually think that there are, but I don't think it actually matters. It's just like a frosting that, it's just like the clown looks the same regardless. It's still a clown.
Now, what do you think going forward? I would get into. I really don't want to get too much on the left because it really was kind of like based on like Trump this topic. But like I guess maybe for Trump going forward, before the election, do you still think there's more like, I wouldn't say like things up his sleeve, like for him to be like rising from the ashes once again, or do you think like this whole thing now with Biden, I guess, kind of stepping down now, it's just going to be a fuckery of like who he's going to be arguing with for the next few months? Or do you think like there's still some more shit for Trump like to come? Like more like stagecraft, I guess, or whatever you want to say. Another scene in the play.
There was a very good astrologer who predicted this whole event, and she was talking about the eye of Medusa, or this eye of Algol. And that was in conjunction, I believe, with Mars. And so right as the day happens, you've got the eye of Algol with this conjunction of Mars just as he's getting shot at. And so she says it's not out of the house yet. It's still going to be, you're still going to have more assassination attempts. He's not out of the woods. So there is that aspect. But I think, it's going to take a lot for people to get outside of that box of Trump derangement syndrome. Half the country, at least, they may not have said it right away, but half the country were like, why could you not hit him? So that's going to be a big hurdle to overcome.
Yeah.
Huh. One more thing. Notoriously, and correct me if I'm wrong, liberals are not staunch Christians. And yet you have non-staunch Christians calling Trump an Antichrist, when an Antichrist is the belief system of the Christians.
That is
yes.
And then and like
because things become the names that you call them.
Yes.
Right? That's very magical. Nick will know that too.
It is interesting.
Sorry, Nick.
No. Well, the whole interesting thing is like, I think I explained this with kind of like grimoires. I said it was funny how you would have people who would entertain the Goetia, but like I think in a sense you'd have to acknowledge like a certain, not a religious, but you're starting to get their aspect to even entertain that shit would work. And then if you're one of those people who deny that religion even exists, how are you even working with it? I don't know. It's like obviously you're not looking at it the way it was intended, in my opinion. But like the same thing you were saying. What were you just saying right now with the?
I think it goes to institutional ethics. They always fall back on the institutional ethics of Christianity because I think they believe that is the framework for the country. So I think they may not know what they're talking about, but they'll go straight back to it as the appeal that they want to project.
Yeah, the whole thing with them, you'll have the left who doesn't believe, you have people who don't believe in Christianity, Catholicism, and call him the Antichrist. And then you have people on the right, in my opinion, if they realized the way they thought about him, that they'd probably actually be like denying Jesus Christ, or like really be like, really be fucking up one of the major things the Bible's telling you not to do, or not to idolize and worship a man. Just like there's just certain things like, or like, if he was really such a man of God, then like, again, like why are certain people even promoting him? If you were to look at their personal life or the images that they give out, it's just like that both sides would have to contradict themselves to have the beliefs that they believe in.
100%.
That's a big part of that Antichrist energy. So, I mean, you find in the book of Revelations all these numbers associated with the beast, and you got 666. And that's not exclusive to Hebraic mythicism. They've got so many other different cultures that point at 666 as being this number of energy, like an unstoppable force. They call it the beast energy, right? And so that idea there is that he's been made unstoppable by this apotheosis event. And so having that kind of energy translate into political realms is never a, promising sign, because it always leads to some sort of destruction, some sort of war.
I'll just point out that the John of Patmos, the Revelation of John, that is not a Hebraic text. He was a Greek Christian. So I think that's just important to note, because I think that he's using a Christian Kabbalah rather than a traditional Hebrew Kabbalah. But I do agree that 666 it's the number of the sun. When you write a magic square for Jyotish Vedic astrology, it all adds up to 666. It's a nine squares in one big square, and it's so 666. And so I agree with you in that way, is that I think it is the beast energy. Now, it is interesting, just to maybe that was my point, close on that the sun is really like the black cube of Mecca, the Kaaba, the Twin Towers in the Book of Wonders. So in the 10th century Arabic kind of first grimoire that made it to Europe, or maybe not the first, but definitely one of the earliest ones, they talk about the gemstone of the sun being a black onyx, like with gold. So, and that is also the Jinn, not my name, but a D-Jinn. That is also the gem of the Jinn of the sun. So I do think that there is kind of like a serpent Leo, kind of like an Aeon element. I think that there's a symbolism there with what Headless is saying. A beast energy.
Yes.
I think also it's the inevitability. I think that's really, because like there has to be a center, there has to be a circumpunct, there has to be a sun, and that kind of beast energy, that center energy, has to be the thing moving the universe. And so that's why they sort of depicted it as it being this inevitable form of prophecy. So they're always pointing to that 666, and they're saying, oh, this computer is working on 666 energy, this whatever, it's all about 666 energy. So there's inevitability associated with that number.
I would like to point out that I always like to point this out, but that when they say that the number of the beast is a number of man, and that's because if you were to boil down a man, or human being rather, it's 6 electrons, 6 neutrons, and 6 protons. And so it's funny to me because I think of it in biological terms, right? That,
it makes sense.
Yeah, and so maybe they were just saying that the Antichrist is going to be a man, not that he, you know what I mean? That he's kind of one of those coded anomalies or whatever. But I think it's also important to, just because we are saying that the right is contrived, the left is also being contrived.
Yes.
I think that the way y'all put it perfectly, a good magician is controlling both factions to get the result that he wants or she wants.
Yeah, so, turning into gold.
Yeah.
Very well said. Very well said. All right, maybe we'll actually just wrap it up there. I think that was all well said. I think that was all good talks. It was very interesting. Thank you, Headless. I really appreciate you bringing the topic, actually. I had asked the man myself if he had any topics for the show, and this was one of many he mentioned. And since it was like kind of like, new, I was like, sure, we'll do this one, and we'll drop, people listening to it today, but we'll drop tomorrow, actually, on all podcasts. So thank you again. Lisa, real quick, would you like to plug yourself?
Absolutely. You can reach me on Twitter at Solis Lisa, or Instagram at Lisa Solis. And then also check us out on the web for the Occult Research Institute. Got a lot of stuff, good stuff in there.
Thank you very much. And your link tree is in the bottom. Jinn, real quick, would you like to let everybody know where they can find your amazing show?
Sure. Thanks, Nick, Lisa, HG. It was actually really fun to do this. I was a little nervous about this topic, but, I think that we all brought our expertise to it and dealt with it in a mature and like actually the occulted way. So I that's why I appreciate this show and appreciate all you guys. So I will say that I did a really interesting Twitter space with Tinfoil Tony. So he is also hosting a Twitter space tonight, and I will probably make a little appearance there. But I did like a whole 2.5 hour show as like the guest. So then people can find me on Twitter at Wukong Reborn, or my show Threshold Saints on Spotify and Anchor.
Awesome. Thank you very much. And your link tree is also in the bottom. And Headless, please let everybody know where they can find you.
Well, absolutely. You can find me on X and Instagram, Headless Giant, and I'm going to try and keep going after it. But I think what's important is to find that center point, right? So everybody wants to jump to a conclusion. The fighting hasn't started yet, so that's something good. I mean, I thought for sure after this thing there would be riots or something.
I really thought so.
But it hasn't started, so this is something good, I think.
Oh, maybe they're like, damn, how much farther do we got to push the right to get them out in the streets?
Right?
We got to shoot them again.
Kill 'em.
They're like, yo, you're going to have to put a pack on your shoulder and take another one. No,
See,
maybe
that's
the calf.
When I first saw him, I'm like, he's blading his ear. Like, I thought that, he might have actually reached up and actually caused that artery to split and cause the blood to go everywhere. But when you see the bullets flying in midair and there's nobody really contesting that shot, it's really hard not to say that this is a genuine event.
Yeah. But thank you very much. Thank you, everybody, for coming on. I had a really great time. Thank you, everybody in the chat. That is what's up. That's why I went live. I appreciate it. May not have much coming on this week. Maybe one or two, maybe one live for this week. So that's why I tried to do it today. Thank you, everyone, again. And that is the end of another Occult Rejects. And until the next one, everybody be well.